Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and this is Ginny O Talks, the part of the channel where I talk about things in the creative community. And today, I want to talk about the March 2023 Star Stable online game blog post. In specific, I want to talk about Stacy Place's the game director of Star Stable's section of the game blog post titled The Missing Quest Team. Now, for those who aren't aware, Star Stable Online does have a blog, and for over a year and a half now, they have been posting monthly blog posts to give us updates on areas and to give us behind the scenes glimpses of how Star Stable looks. There's also been some live streams on Twitch, some Instagram reels, and a lot of the devs just coming out and saying things in weird random places. And I've been trying to cover those that are, I feel, important, or things that I can expound upon more to make it more accessible to younger viewers. Now, I really want to address this one because I am an author and because the quote-unquote missing quest team has been an issue for the Star Stable online team and the Star Stable community since at least 2018, some 2017. And I had seen complaints before then, but 2017, 2018 is where this really started to take off. And coincidentally, 2017 is when Stacy Place started to work at Star Stable as a public relations kind of community manager. So let me read this to you. I will put the link to the blog post in the description below if you want to read along. And then I want to kind of address what she says and what she means using some other information that I've gathered, explain probably a few other things from Johan and what was going on before. And then I want to talk about what we, the community, mean when we say quest team. So let's get straight to the article. So, your storyteller returns this month with another tale, that of the infamous quest team and the production structure at the place beyond Jorvik, Star Stable Entertainment headquarters. My name is Stacy, and I'm the game director for Star Stable Online. The missing quest team. I still see comments to this day about how much trouble I must have gotten into after divulging in an interview with the main quest that there is no quest team at Star Stable. I'm not sure who would have scolded me or why, but I smile a little bit every time and wish I had explained it much better. There is not now, nor has there ever been, a quest team at Star Stable. But I absolutely see how people have been confused. We've always stated that the team works on quests is not the same as the team that works on horses. I responded to all our social media comments and messages for many years, which is still true. However, the team that works on quests doesn't only work on quests, and the team that works on horses doesn't only work on horses either. The team that works on quests has previously been known as the Jorvik team. They are receiving a new name soon, the Continuous Experience Domain, as we're currently in the middle of some reorganizing. This is because they handle most of the content that fills our world, races, quests, area revamps, festivals, and so on. As I write this, probably long before you are reading it, that team is currently working on the next primary quest, Storm over Devil's Gap, the next primary festival, Equestrian, Horse Progression, and a secondary quest, Anne's Horse Training. So much falls under their umbrella, giving the team various content they can work on. The horse team is actually the horse and character team, soon known as the creatures and features domain. They deliver not only all of our amazing horses, but also NPCs, pets, and new types of tech, and they are in charge of the retrofitting process. Again, just to name a few things. They don't have to tackle quests, since that team currently has no game designers. I'm not entirely sure the artists and animators there would be so excited to work in an area without experience in it, although everyone is always welcome to learn something new if they want to. Continuous experience domain. If that's not a mouthful of bureaucraties, I don't know what is. Okay, so let's take the first paragraph at a time. Ignoring the whole thing where she's like, I don't know who would, I'm a game director. Who's gonna scold me? The whole public relations department, honestly. So let's address there is not now nor there have ever been a quest team at Star Stable. So this is why I'm hitting some speculation. I've heard some rumors, and I want to share them with you because these rumors kind of make a lot of sense. And for a small company like Star Stable Entertainment was between 2011 and 2016, this is actually something that is very common that will happen. So between 2011 and 2016, Marcus Yorkin, Bjorkang, was the game director at Star Stable. And in 2017, he left with Frederick, the original CEO, who was in charge of it. And what was going on, according to rumor, was Marcus was very, very jealous of the story. He is the one who wrote all the story for Star Stable Online between 2011 and 2016, along with the quests that they took from the earlier seasonal games. And if you've played the seasonal games, you'll know exactly which quests I'm talking about. Many of them are now dailies. He was very, very jealous of this, and he wanted to be the one to do it. So he was actually kind of this lead writer, or even the only writer. Now, like I said, this is rumored in speculation. I don't know if it's true or not, but between 2011 and 2016, they had under 50 people working for the entire company. So it is very common when you have a team with 20-25 people that your game director is also going to be your lead writer, lead narrative designer type of person. So he left with Frederick. And it feels to me, and I don't know how it feels to anybody else, but everything I want to say after rescuing Night Dust, any ideas after that, he took with them. If there was a lore book or an outline or ideas he had in his head, he basically left nothing behind when he cleared out. And we know that the people who worked on rescuing Concord and Catherine's memories were either fired or quit in 2022. So the people who were working on the story after Marcus Yorkin left have also left. So if there was any sort of type of collaborative writing effort between the people working on Catherine's memories and rescuing Concord and rescuing Anne, it's gone. They're gone too. So what does Stacy mean by the team that works on quests being known as the Jorvik team. What's been happening, since Marcus left. So back in December, Stacy gave an interview with the Star Stable Discord Photo Club. There are a couple of young girls in Sweden, and they run a Discord. They're very nice girls, and they got an interview with Stacy. This is their second interview with her, because Stacy is actually part of their Discord, because Stacy likes riding around in Jorvik and taking pictures, which is fine. That's great. Good for her. But in this December interview, she explained what she meant by a the continuous experience domain Jorvik team. Okay, so this team is working on races, quests, area revamps, festivals. If it's not part of horses, tack, and characters, they're doing it. So they've got a good 75 to 80% of the game on their shoulders. So when they're working on a quest, quote unquote, there is, according to Stacy, one writer, two designers, and two artists working on, say, the primary quest. And then there'll be another writer, artist, designer group working on the equestrian festival, and then the secondary quest. I don't know who's working on the horse progression, probably just designers and artists, because that's mostly UI and game mechanics. So you have three different types of 5-people teams. So you have like 15 people working on 3 different things, probably overlapping each other. Some of them are going to be finished first so that they can be moved to another thing. Stacy has a problem with scheduling. She's mentioned that it's very difficult to schedule things at Star Stable Online. And I believe there was some sort of live, an Instagram or a Twitch stream live, where there is a lead narrative at Star Stable. Her name is Anne. I believe her pronouns are he, she, but they also might be her, they. I'm not sure. So there is a lead narrative at Star Stable. And what Stacy is saying is that they are going to reorganize the company so that it is structured with teams that will go through the player's experience of the game. So we're going to get the continuous experience domain and the creatures and features. Basically, it sounds like nothing is going to change except the names, in my opinion, but maybe she's shuffling some people around. I don't know. All I know is it sounds exceedingly bureaucratic. It sounds like, people are wearing a lot of different hats, and it sounds very chaotic to me. I'm just very confused. And so you're like, well, this game has a lot of story to it. Notice I called it a story, not a game, because that's what this is to me. This is like a single-player, persistent online world visual novel. I am here to take on Garnock and chew bubblegum, and I am all out of bubblegum. Okay, and so you might be thinking, well, why aren't they putting more emphasis on story? When Marcus was there, when Marcus Yorkin was there, we were actually towards that 2016 area and some of 2017 getting quite a lot of story. We were booking through Night Dust. We were just like every couple months, every 2 or 3 months, we're getting 10-20 minute chunks of this whole Night Quest arc. So, but after that, it was like dead until 2019, 2 years later. So why isn't Star Stable putting more emphasis on the story? And it's kind of more than just, Nordisk investing in Star Stable and putting a lot of money in Star Stable and wanting that money back, where the money is, people buying horses rather than people paying for subscriptions and paying for lifetime. So in May of 2021, when Star Stable was doing their whole 10-year anniversary and they were really hyping up a lot of stuff, Johan actually came out of the woodwork, and he came out of hiding, and he gave a couple interviews, and a lot of them said the same thing, and a lot of them actually were almost direct quotes from Frederick from the 2017 Forbes issue article. And there was another one that Frederick did back in 2017 that Johan also seems to be quoting. So just so you know, in like those 5 years, PR has not changed what the CEO is saying. But here, something that really stood out to me was in this Pocket Gamer article that he did in May of 2021. He says, MMO games aren't great for deep characters or dealing with complex matters as you can do with books. Wow. I'm sorry. Tell me that you've never played World of Warcraft without telling me you've never played World of Warcraft. Tell me you've never played Final Fantasy 14 without telling me you've never played Final Fantasy 14. This quote still gets me to this day. So the reason why, as a company, Star Stable Entertainment is not focused on the story of their #1 game where they have all their eggs in this one basket. I mean, we don't have, Star Stable Entertainment doesn't have other games to bring them in revenue. If Star Stable fails, they are out of luck. It's just because Johan, the CEO, who is going to be like more than just, just a little bit more than looking at the books and the numbers, is he influences the attitude of everyone beneath him. So if he doesn't believe that, games can tell great stories, then they're not going to put emphasis on story in the game. So, and here's the thing. Marcus Yorkin was the one who contacted Helena to write the books in the first place. And Marcus Yorkin considers himself the creator of the Soul Riders or whatever. I don't know how Magnus and Nils feel about that, but okay. But, you Google this and you're going to find that Marcus is the one who contacted her, and and it says that he considers himself the creator of the Soul Riders. So he was heavily invested in the story, but he probably wanted to move on and do something else. So here we are. So there's never been a quest team because Marcus Yorkin, the previous game director, was the quest team. He was the lead writer, and it was small enough back then that they could get away with it, and he was putting out a lot of story. And then after Johan took over, Yorkin left, and then now we have basically random groups of people, whoever is free from the quote Jorvik team, coming in and writing the story and the quest lines as they're available. So that means, in my opinion, and by the execution of these quests, by the way, that means the person who worked on the Equestrian Festival last year, the writer of the Equestrian Festival last year, who had no idea how to write either Alex or Linda. Oh my god. It's not going to be the same person to write the Equestrian Festival this year unless they were, miraculously available for that scheduling period. And the person who wrote the last main quest is probably not going to be the same person who writes the next main quest. So you are going to get a lot of inconsistent characterization. You're going to have characters using wildly, vastly different modes of speech and slang, even though they're technically the same character. And they're just, it's going to be kind of all over the place in quality of, you know, who the dialogue is actually aimed at, and, you know, what the maturity level of the characters actually are. And I mean, we've seen this for quite some time about how up and down the story has been doing. Personally, and I've just seen this through the equestrian festivals and the Halloween festivals. Because personally, I haven't touched the main story, in 2 years, because it's coming out in such drips and drabs. Yes, we have spent over 2 years on this whole Concord thing. So the story's coming out in such drips and drabs that I want to play the story when I know we're going to have some sort of complete chapter arc. When they decide that, you know, Concord is going to be either remain a foal or become a big horse, then I'll go through and play through that arc, because then it will feel like we have had some sort of progression in the game. And a lot of the problems, and I've seen this everywhere, is that because the story is coming out in such drips and drabs, people are forgetting, players are forgetting what they did before, you know, what was the story and why are we doing this? So they're losing emotional investment. They're not hooked into the game as much as they could be. And a lot of them, when you do this, they're just going to leave. They're just going to wander off and not come back. And you're going to lose, you know, pacing and tension. A lot of the storylines set up are actually quite tense, but we haven't done anything with them so long, it's become unimportant. You know, you have this really tense stuff like Old Hillcrest, and because we haven't been doing any story towards it, who cares? Like, really, who cares? Like, this can't be important. They're fine. They're screaming their heads off, but they're fine, type of thing. Now, the community has a different view of what a quest team is than Star Stable Entertainment. They want somebody like Marcus Yorkin in there whose job it is to consistently and constantly work on the story. And they want this person to have a team of people who are sitting there in a room deciding, you know, the overarching plot and giving us a good, you know, first, here's where the story begins and here's where we defeat Garnock for now, or something like that. There's also this belief in the current company that if they defeat Garnock, the story is over, which to me personally feels like an extreme lack of imagination, considering some of the dialogue in the game, especially from Evergrey. So, I mean, if you only have the concept that your game only has one campaign when you're a massive multi-online game, you don't, you have just, like, if WoW had ended after one campaign, holy crap, you know, it wouldn't be the force it is today. So just think of Garnock as one campaign, or, you know, like, what? So the game is not going to be over when Garnock is defeated if you have some, well, let me say, use your imagination. Like, so the community wants to know that there is a chance of sometime in their lifetime of, you know, getting a complete map with a complete story of, you know, us rising and learning the powers of Adine or whatever we're doing now, and, you know, defeating Garnock or pushing Garnock back away from Jorvik or whatever, and, you know, moving on to the next section of the game or the world or whatever. And they want a team who are sitting there doing that and providing consistent lore and providing, characters that are coherent and, are like the old characters from Starshine Legacy. They want them, they want an entertaining story that many of them don't want to have to create themselves because they aren't that type of creative person, okay? I'm an author. I could create this myself, you know? So what is this in like for the rest of the game industry? Because I read Stacy's article, part of the article, and I just was like, I had to get up and like Google, WoW and Guild Wars 2 and Final Fantasy 14 because I felt like I was taking crazy pills. Like she was trying to make us believe that we are crazy for wanting a group of people to be sitting there in a room consistently working on the story. So I'm going to put this in industry jargon for us all. So what happens in the industry for an MMO type of game is that, and for many, many, many other games as well, let's be clear that most games have this type of setup, is that there is somebody in the company called a narrative director, okay? Or a narrative lead. So let's look at WoW. WoW has a narrative director. His name is Steve Daniser, and he has been the lead writer since, he's been there for a couple years, actually. He's done a couple of the expansions. The lead writer for, wrong Shadowland. So he joined WoW in 2015. So Steve Danister has been the narrative director at Blizzard Entertainment for quite some time. Now, Final Fantasy XIV has a lot of different narrative writers and directors because, like with WoW, as you do more expansions, other writers are brought in to write other expansions. So the Heavensward director, narrative director, Kazutoyo Mihiro, he is now working on Final Fantasy XVI, and they have a new narrative director for 14, who is Naoki Yoshida, and she is currently I don't know. There's he's the director, and I said narrative director. There's a woman was currently, I believe, in the Natsuyoko Ishikawa, I think, is the current narrative director. She was brought in as a writer. Yes. So the Shadowbringers writer was Natsuyuka Ishikawa, so she's going to return for Shadowbringers, and she came for Endwalker too. Okay, so she's the lead narrative writer for the Final Fantasy latest Final Fantasy expansions. And then Guild Wars 2 has an entire narrative team. So the studio narrative director is Tom Abernathy, and they have an associate narrative director, Bobby Stein, and then they have a whole writing and narrative design lead team underneath that, with Quang Peng is the narrative lead, and there's 7 writers, narrative designers underneath her, okay? So what this means is that in other companies, you have somebody who's in charge of the story. The producers and the game directors will also come in, and they'll be talking about how they want the world to be and what type of themes they're thinking of. But you have the narrative directors and the lead writers who are given pretty much the freedom to write a story. And they are going to write the beginning, the middle, the end, the conflicts, and the obstacles they're overcoming, and, you know, like thinking about what type of things are in the world, where we're going on the map, and, you know, all sorts of like NPCs and stuff. That is their job, is to create a compelling story for the game. And then underneath them, they have a whole bunch of people, like in Guild Wars' case, they have 7 people, who are working on basically things like the dialogue. And these people will be assigned characters to write. So they get to really get to know these characters, how they talk, you know, what type of slang do they use, how are their sentences constructed, are they formal talkers or are they more informal talkers type of thing. And they will be, you know, assigned quests to write dialogue for type of thing. And that's how it works. And some of them, you know, and some of them might be like assigned, you know, write this particular part of the arc, or write this part of the living world, or write, you know, write this chapter of story that we're going to put out. I'm coming up with this plot, everything. So they'll be allowed to contribute to the overall story. So then the narrative team will also work with a cinematography team. So they'll have these ideas in their head and these plans, these, you know, think about the opening cutscene of Final Fantasy X with the Blitzball game and Sin coming in and destroying it. Or there was that cutscene at the end of, before they did, you know, when they were ending the original Final Fantasy XIV and they were destroying the world and stuff like that. But WoW has a lot of cutscenes too. So the cinematographer is going to be working with the story team, and the cinematography team will have like a storyboard person there to plan the shots, like to help plan the shots for these things, because they want these cutscenes to feel like epic film scenes from, you know, Star Wars, or Lord of the Rings, or James Cameron's Avatar, things like that. They want these to have really good scale, and they want them to have emotion, so you have to get your lighting right, and you have to get your angles right. So that's what the cinematography team does. And the game design team, they're the ones going, okay, the character has to go to this mountain and get this MacGuffin. And so you need to write the story for them to get to this mountain to get this MacGuffin, and they can't have X, Y, and Z. And that's what they tell the narrative design team. So people are working hand in hand, but you have them, you know, all working together in groups, and they're talking to one another as different groups, okay? This is why you have, you know, the directors going between them to manage their time and stuff like that, and keep stuff on schedule. But the important part is, there is a group of people in a room consistently working on the story, and that is their job. Their job is to write the story and the dialogue for all the quests, and, you know, write the world and lore build world. And some games like Skyrim have entire world building teams, so they'll be there to build the world, to kind of talk with the concept artists, to be like, this is what we want the world to look like, and the concept artists are like, oh cool, let's work on that, you know, how this is what we're thinking on of, you know, monsters and crap and stuff like that. So this is what the community wants. The community wants a group of people in a room consistently working on the story, coming up with a plot outline, coming up with a lore book, coming up with some sort of world building that makes coherent, logical sense. Because right now, nothing is making coherent, logical sense. And every single time, you know, we find out that there is not a group of people, despite, you know, we haven't been using industry jargon, and believe me, Star Stable Entertainment doesn't use industry jargon. Their titles are so wacky, I don't know what they are most of the time. So they're not, you know, every time we turn around and they're like, oh, we're going to work on putting together a quest team, we're working on putting together a quest team, and then they say, well, no, there is no quest team. Stacy comes out and says there isn't one. Everybody gets mad. And yes, you have a right to be mad, because You came to this story to defeat Garnet and chew bubblegum. And we're not defeating Garnet. And we don't have any bubblegum. And, you know, every single year that this happens, you know, it happened in November and it kind of lasted to that March, April. You lose more and more people because they want to, you know, have this story. They want to enjoy this story. And have a group of people working on a story so they feel that they're getting what they paid for. We're paying AAA prices for a game that doesn't even have the first campaign done. So if you're mad, you have every right to be mad, because Star Stable is just not getting the message. I don't know how we're getting this disconnect. Like, we want a group of people actually working on the story all the time, not, you know, what feels like random employees. Oh, you're free, please write this part of the quest. That's so we end up with some really wonky stuff. Thank you for listening. I hope I connected something. I don't know if I did or not, but if you know, this makes it so you want to leave the game, fine. I get it. Like I said, I haven't touched the main story in 2 years, so completely understandable. Take care of yourselves. Go ahead and play other games like Star Equestrian's out there, Red Dead Redemption 2, Red Dead Online, Alicia Online, Rival Stars. There's new games coming out too. You know, Stride's gonna come out. Maybe you want to ride dinosaurs and paleopines. I don't know. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Bless. And I will see you in the next video.